Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. Last night was the finale of Zach Shallcross's season of The Bachelor. We already did our full recap. Now we're going to look at the he said, she said of it all. Lady number 3, the third finalist, Ariel. She knows what happened in the fantasy suite between Zach and Rachel. Nick Viall presses her like a good interviewer would on the answer, and we're going to have to find out what she says. So stick around. I'm going to share just 5 or 6 clips from Nick's podcast. Go check out his full interview. Pretty good so far from all I've seen. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals, patreon.com/Dave Neal if you want behind the scenes bonus content. We have daily live streams. Patreon's watching right now. Hello, Patreon. So if you want to be a part of that fun community of nice, we're just under probably 300 people or so, but we appreciate all those that want to donate and just throw some bread in the tip jar. Also, Bachelor Rush Hour, the afternoon podcast. I will have brand new, unique content on today's Bachelor Rush Hour every afternoon. Link in the comment section to listen to that. All right, Ariel did her first interview. Of course, she roasted Zach last night. We're going to discuss the closer she caught, getting nominated to be on the show, open relationships, how when intimacy was taken off the table, how she felt like Zach took away her agency, and by that, she'll explain herself, plus what possibly could have gone down with Rachel Recchia and Zach Shallcross. The more people aren't talking, the more we want to know. Have a listen.
Being able to see Zach again, it's been 6 months since we officially broke up, since everything happened.
Okay, wow.
So that gives me a lot of time to process. Sure. And I think the final closing piece was seeing him again now and being able to articulate what I was feeling.
Okay.
So watching it back, knowing that I wasn't given the full piece of information, I think it was important for me to relay that versus really being still in pain over the relationship.
Okay.
And boy, she did a good job of calling Zach out last night. She listened to him, but also got all of her words in.
Sure, you knew nothing about it.
I thought it was a prank because my friends and I
So this is getting nominated to be on the show. She thought it was a prank.
Prank call a lot. And we like to mess with each other. I was familiar with the show from a few years ago. I didn't really watch it actively kind of on the past few seasons.
You're not alone.
But I kind of dipped in and out of different seasons, but really hadn't known much about it at all. Okay. And didn't really try to watch it before I went into the show.
Which, of course, they must love. If they can ever find somebody, it's like when you're doing jury duty, or like you need someone who's not going to be biased. And that's what you want going on the show as a producer. You want to be able to manipulate and mold this cast as much as you can.
Bachelor historians out there, please let us know. But you called this experience an open relationship, which I don't remember someone referring to the show as that since I've been involved with the show. And I really appreciated it, you kind of naming and kind of giving it a very kind of 2023 kind of review of what this experience is. And that is very much a very open kind of polyamorous type of environment. And what made you say that? And yeah, because I just really loved you calling it that. And I feel like going forward,
polyamorous for Zach,
you'll change the conversations with how people refer to the show.
I think it's important we're in a reality TV show, but it's important to be as real as you can be. So I think it's important to call things out. Like, we are in an open relationship. I wanted to make sure that I said that actually, because I committed to an open relationship. So the issue of what happened wasn't the fact that the person was open, it was the dishonesty.
So here's what I like about her. By labeling it an open relationship, she can then take the rules of open relationships and show how Zach crossed the line, which is true, but also it's a TV show. So as a TV show, is he allowed to cross the lines? No. But will he be exploited and pushed by the producers to cross the lines? Yes. That's what the producers want to do. They want to make Zach feel like the whole thing is about him, just like Clayton did. And then when that happens, you get the sort of like casting a large wake, if you will, in a no-wake zone. And then you get the collateral damage to everyone else because he's just worried about his journey.
So I think the only way to survive these things is to be honest with yourself and your partner and to be open because you're in an open relationship. So if someone sleeps with someone else or something happens, that's not really downgrading our relationship. That's you exploring others that we've committed to. So I wanted to make it clear that my issue is the fact that I was never told that, not the issue of what happened, and that also should be private. So he went outside of, when you're in an open relationship, the rules are set in place.
So now she's doing the thing where, from the legal standpoint, she's going, these are the rules. Yeah, but you have to apply them to the TV show. Like you say, things should be in private. We understand that, but there is no privacy until the fantasy suites.
And if the parameters change for that relationship, your partner needs to know.
So what, and again, I don't knock her. I would just push back and say, look, what is Zach supposed to do? He's on fantasy suite number 2 with Gabby. They've decided to have sex. They've exchanged the condom. They're fiddling with it. He needs to go, hold on, Katie. Hold on, Gabby. Don't move. And he needs to run over, knock on, hello? Yes, Ariel, the parameters of the relationship have changed. I'm going to go bang Katie, Gabby. And then he's got to run over there and, oh, okay. And she's sleeping and he's like, oh, no. And then he's got to go back to Ariel and say, Gabby's sleeping, so sex is off the table, so we're not going to do it, okay? And then he needs to run back to Gabby. And then the next morning, Gabby's like, what about that thing we were going to do? And he's like, I got to tell Ariel that the thing's changed. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. Okie dokie. Anyway, I digress.
Because if you're already open, that's difficult in itself. So honesty is everything versus monogamy in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, you need a phone. So maybe a text message. Hey, Ariel, things have changed. 27:55 is the next mark we're going to go to. No, intimacy is off the table, 26:30. So this is the moment where Ariel finds out that she was mansplained intimacy by Zach.
Beforehand, I always felt like I was aware of what was happening, how relationships were progressing, because people in the house talk. You hear about every date after it happens. This is the first time I was alone. So all I could think about was our date versus what could possibly be happening with like Gabby and Katie as much. Because I felt like we did have such a great night. We did have such a great time. There wasn't this like pressure for intimacy, which I wish, again, we had a conversation about, but that it was nice for me personally to have that off the table so we could talk. Mm-hmm. And I feel like...
So, okay. And again, this is all in good fun. She's doing a great job here. She says she was mad that he took sex off the table, but that it was nice that sex was off the table. So clearly it wasn't the issue of sex. It was the issue of wanting to be a part of the conversation. Let's rewind a few minutes here.
Okay.
He kind of set the precedent.
And I don't disagree with Ariel.
For the whole week and the whole evening, which is also what I had a problem with, because throughout the entirety of our relationship, he's making me feel like an individual. So the difficulty of dating someone that's dating 30 other people is to feel like an individual. And he made such a point of making me feel that way on our one-on-one in different moments. I never felt like there was anything but us, obviously knowing there were other people in the mix. But when it was us two, it wasn't about anyone else's relationship. And in doing so, in saying, for this week, I'm not going to sleep with anyone. I'm not going to do those types of things. And starting the full conversation at dinner off that way, I just didn't appreciate that we're now more in a collective situation in how we approach our own relationship. And also, we're not having a conversation. It's a monologue, not a dialogue. So I had the same intentions as Zach that week. I personally was not ready for intimacy in that setting. So, and I felt like if I'm in an open relationship and I know the other person could be with someone else the next night, they're entitled to do that, in my opinion. It's not for me to say yes or no, but I'm personally not going to do that in my own experiences. So I really didn't like that he started the entire date off that way. And he started the whole night off predicated on sex versus us having a private conversation, being off camera, enjoying that time, seeing even what happened. I don't like when you set a standard for how a night should go or a date should go.
It's a good point, because Zach could have waited the fantasy suites to have that conversation, but instead he led with it. And that's just his sort of bullheaded way of thinking about things.
I think you set yourself at a deficit that way.
Sure. Yeah, totally. So when the producers leave, cameras go, how did he start off that conversation? Now that you guys are alone, you have the entire night to yourselves, and he kind of had this probably surprisingly an awkward conversation with you. What was that first conversation like between the two of you?
Well, because we had that whole conversation on camera, we really started everything in the fantasy suite, I hate calling it that. Let's call it overnight. Fantasy suite is very antiquated and creepy. I feel like we started just talking. We talked about his past experiences. We talked about things that he had issues with in previous.
Okay, here we go. So she says, we talked about past experiences, and the only thing we've wanted to know this whole time is what could have gone down in his fantasy suite with Rachel.
Overnights. We talked about basically I feel like we started just talking. We talked about his past experiences. We talked about things that he had issues with in previous overnights. We talked about basically everything under the sun.
His only one being with Rachel.
Until the sun went up. So that's what that whole date was about for us. We didn't really talk about sex or have to talk about anything of that nature because this is the only time we're off camera to get to know each other before a potential engagement. So I wanted to maximize that time on actually speaking about things that we've endured that we haven't gotten to on these short dates.
Did any insight between what happened between him and Rachel?
Yes.
Whoa.
Okay. Can you share?
No.
Okay. What did you learn about Zach?
All right, so there it is, folks. Yeah, that's right. I know you wanted more. You wanted more, but that's what Ariel said. She knows what happened last summer, metaphorically. She knows what went down with Zach in Rachel's fantasy suite, and we don't, but we can speculate. All right, let's go to a couple more clips here. 27:55, and we'll get you out of here very shortly. But this will be our featured video on today's Bachelor Rush Hour podcast, along with some American Idol news and so much more.
Yeah.
E equals MC squared.
Did you think he potentially had sex with one of the other women?
Yeah. I feel like the female intuition is so strong. It's potent.
Sure.
So it's palpable. So I just knew something like that happened. I knew it had nothing to do with me.
All right. So she said she knew it had nothing to do with her. And of course, and like, what can you do? Of course, then she also mentions why she didn't think her family was on board with the relationship and how in the end she probably wouldn't have gotten engagement or a proposal.
These things. And I felt like the environment actually took that ability away. It's very weird, but it actually worked counterintuitively.
Yeah. Were you prepared to accept a proposal from Zach?
It was really hard for me to be prepared to accept that when I kind of was getting a feeling that my family was really not on board. And when we had spoken in the fantasy suites, it really sounded like the conversations he had with my parents were not the smoothest, and with my brother in particular.
Yikes. All right. Well, you can go check out Nick's full interview of Ariel on his podcast, Vile Files. That's your update. That's your recap. If anyone wants more content, we will be here this afternoon. Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast, the hit podcast, just rising the rankings over there in the podcast world. Go check that out. Also, if you want to donate and put some bread in the old tip jar, go to patreon.com/Dave Neal and be a part of our membership-only community. All right, folks, more content coming your way. We will be right back.